I live in a small blue house on Maple Street in Chicago, a place that looks plain from the outside, but holds my whole story on the inside. The porch leans a little, and the steps groan when I come home after midnight. The paint on the railing is chipped, but I like the color anyway. It reminds me of a soft lake morning, the kind that comes after a hard storm. My name is Grace, and this house is mine because I chose to build a life that is simple and steady. I pay the mortgage on time most months, and a few times I paid it late when other bills came first, but I never missed it. I work 2 jobs and stretch every dollar like a rubber band. Most mornings start before the sun. I lace my shoes in the kitchen while the coffee maker hisses, and I stand at the sink watching the street wake up. Garbage trucks roll by. The neighbor's dog barks once, and then gives up. I drink from a chipped white mug that used to be part of a set, and I pack a sandwich for later. Turkey, mustard, a leaf of lettuce that's seen better days. My first job is at a bakery on Clark Street. I tie on a flour-dusted apron and start the ovens. Warm air rushes at my face, and for a moment life feels soft and sweet. I like the rhythm. Mix, proof, bake, repeat. By noon, my sleeves are smudged and my pockets jingle with tips. I count them on my break. $28, $41, sometimes $65 on a good day, with a rush of tourists. The second job starts after sunset at a hotel by the river. I swap the apron for a dark blazer and comfortable shoes. My feet already ache by then, but I stand up straight and smile at people who flew in from Denver or drove in from Ohio or took a train from somewhere far away. I keep extra key cards in my pocket and a pen behind my ear. I answer the phone. I print maps. I listen to strangers tell me small pieces of their lives. Some talk about a wedding. Some talk about a funeral. One time a couple from London asked me where to find the best pie in the city and tipped me £10 for the answer. I still have the note, folded like a tiny blue promise. I turned it into cookie boxes at the bakery and made a small profit. That is how money works for me. I turn one kind thing into another. When people ask why I work 2 jobs, I say, I'm paying for a future. I mean several futures at once. There is my blue house, which needs a new porch beam. There is my quiet plan to take a vacation one day, even if it is just a weekend in a small town with a book and a window view. But most of all, there is my sister, Lena. She is 4 years younger, with sharp eyes and a laugh that goes high and bright like a bell. When she got into a college in New York, I danced in this kitchen by myself. I told her I would help with tuition and books. I told myself I could do it without falling apart. I set up transfers and cut expenses. I learned to say no when friends asked me to go out after work. I sent $600 some months, $1,200 other months. Once a semester bill arrived early, and I wired $4,000 at once. I watched my savings drop like a stone and told myself it was a seed, not a loss. At first, Lena called every week with thanks. She told me about the city lights, about stories she wanted to write, about a class where the professor wore bright scarves and talked about America like it was a long, living poem. She said she might spend a summer in Europe one day, maybe London or Paris, and bring back notes and photos and a taste for strong coffee. I told her to keep dreaming and to keep receipts. I paid her rent when internships did not pay her back. It started at $1,250 in a small Brooklyn walk-up, then $1,350 when the landlord raised it. I managed by working more hours and picking up an overnight shift after a conference came to town. I sold a ring I had kept from a long-ago romance and used that money to cover her books. It hurt a bit, but it also felt like clearing a path. My parents, Evelyn and Peter, live in a smaller town outside Boston where the air smells of salt in the fall. They try to help where they can, but money is tight for them. Dad does odd jobs when his back allows it, and Mom works part-time at a clinic, filing papers with careful hands. When they call, they thank me. They say I am keeping the family steady. I tell them it is nothing, because that is easier than telling the truth about the numbers. The truth is I measure life in envelopes. One for the mortgage. One for the electric bill, one for the bus pass, one for the little bit I try to save, another always for Lena. I keep them in a metal tin on the pantry shelf. On payday, I feed each envelope a few bills, counting slow so I don't make mistakes. When the tin grows light, I cook a pot of beans and stretch them across 3 nights. Sometimes I wonder what I might do with the money if I kept it. I would fix the porch. I would take Marcus, my patient friend, to a nice dinner that costs more than $18 a plate and does not smell like grease on the way out. Marcus works at a repair shop and knows how to fix machines and moods. He brings me spare muffins when I miss lunch and tells me jokes that are not fancy, but land right where I need them. He does not tell me to stop helping Lena. He says, "I see you," and that means more than any advice. He also reminds me to take care of the house because a house is both a shelter and a mirror. When the porch sags, I sag with it. When the kitchen is neat, I breathe better. There are days when the weight feels light, like I am a strong rower, and the river is smooth. There are other days when the wind turns and everything tilts. I feel it most when the bakery is short-staffed and the hotel lobby fills with a late flight. On those nights, my feet burn and my hands shake when I count the drawer. I think about the word future and wonder if I spelled it wrong. I wonder if I am building a stairway or just circling the same floor. But then I come home to the blue house and set my keys in the dish by the door and breathe out. The lamp by the couch throws a warm square on the wall. I stand inside that light and feel safe. It is a small life, but it fits me. I also keep a ledger in a spiral notebook, the cheap kind from the drugstore, with lines that tilt at the corners because the paper is thin. I write down every payment I make for Lena. I write the date, the amount, the reason. July 3rd, $850, past due rent. September 12th, $210, textbooks. November 1st, $1,200, tuition transfer. When I do the math, the total makes my throat tight, but the columns also calm me. I like to see where the money went. It tells me I have not been careless, only generous. At the bottom of each page, I write a short note to myself. Keep going. Or rest soon. Or once, when I felt extra brave. You are not a fool. You are a builder. If you asked me then what I wanted from Lena in return, I would have said, nothing big. Just respect.
Just a phone call where she says she is trying.
Just a plan. I did not need gifts. I did not need praise. I just wanted us to be on the same side, looking the same way down the road. I wanted her to know money is not magic. It is hours and knees and backs and late buses and early alarms. It is standing when your body wants to sit. It is counting and recounting so the lights stay on. It is love, translated into bills and transfers. On the last quiet morning before everything changed, I stood at the porch with my coffee and watched the sky trade pink for gray. A breeze moved the maple leaves like pages in a big book. I thought about my week. Double shift on Tuesday, a family dinner in Boston next weekend for Aunt Marie's birthday, a tiny space in the middle where I might nap. I felt tired, but the good kind. The kind that says you showed up. The kind that says you can do one more day. I did not know yet that a single word at that dinner would drag years of work into the open. I did not know yet how heavy the truth would feel in my mouth. I only knew my name, my house, and the shape of the morning, and I told myself, as I often do, keep going. The morning I left for Boston, the blue house felt like a living thing asking me to stay. I wiped the kitchen counter twice, though it was already clean, and checked the lock on the back door 3 times. I set the thermostat, straightened the curtains, and pressed my palm to the cool window pane, the way you press a note into a friend's hand before a hard day. Marcus drove me to the station in his dented pickup, a coffee in the holder, a spare phone charger in the tray. Text me when you land, he said, though he knew I was taking a budget flight that made texting a trick. I'll text when I can, I promised, and we both pretended that counted as enough. The flight was full of families and business travelers, the kind who open laptops as though the sky is just another office. I thought about money the whole way, the way I always do when I am trapped with my thoughts. I added figures in my head, $600 here, $1,200 there, for $1,000 in a single wire that had left me lightheaded and shaky, like I'd stood too fast. I remembered the envelope tin on the pantry shelf, the thin stack labeled house, repairs that had stolen from itself to feed Lena rent. I promised the blue house I would pay it back the way you promise a person you love that you'll do better next month. Boston wore its autumn like a fine coat. The air smelled of leaves and faint with smoke, and the streets along the harbor looked rinsed and ready. Mom met me at the curb outside Aunt Marie's brick townhouse, her cardigan tucked into her purse like she might need it at any second. Dad waved from the steps, and I felt that quick rush of home that has nothing to do with a place and everything to do with faces. "You look thin," Mom said, which is her way of saying she worries. Dad hugged me and slipped a folded $20 bill into my coat pocket like a magician doing a small trick. "For snack," he said, though we were walking into a house with enough food to feed a small neighborhood. Inside, the long dining table glowed under a row of candles, and the silverware had been polished until it winked at the light. Aunt Marie moved like a gentle storm, carrying platters, assigning chairs, kissing foreheads. My cousin David leaned in the doorway telling a joke to anyone who would stand still long enough. Marcus couldn't make the trip, but his name floated through my mind when I saw the seat beside me. Empty at first, then filled by a woman with a warm laugh named Rebecca, a friend of David's who worked at a bookstore and talked about paper like it had a soul. "You must be Grace," she said. "Your aunt brags about your cinnamon rolls as if they're a famous landmark." Lena swept in late like she had practiced the timing, her new coat the color of fresh cream and her boots clicking a bright rhythm across the floor. She kissed Aunt Marie, hugged Mom, and reached for me with arms that smelled like a department store. "You look tired," she said, and I heard the judgment tucked inside the care. "Work," I said. "2 jobs," Dad added, the proud echo he always gives me. Lena tossed her hair. "You should ask for more at 1 job," she said. "People who know their worth don't stack shifts, they leverage." Rebecca sipped her water to hide a smile, and I pressed my napkin into my lap like it might anchor me. Dinner began in the way big family meals always do, dishes circling like planets, voices skipping, stories overlapping. Aunt Marie's friends talked about Boston traffic and a gallery opening. Someone said a cousin had moved to Denver. Someone else said a neighbor had spent the summer in Europe and come back with a new taste for espresso and small spoons. I tried to let the talk wash over me like music, but worry kept tugging at my sleeve. I looked at Lena's hands, unlined, unscarred, quick. I wanted to hold them and also to put a pen in them and a ledger and say, "Here, this is how you make math into a life." It was Uncle Robert who asked the question that turned the room. He has a voice like a radio host, friendly, even impossible to argue with because it never sounds like a fight. "Lena," he said, buttering a roll, "how are you paying the bills during that internship? New York isn't exactly cheap." He said it as if he were asking about the weather, with a smile on the end like a period. Forks paused. Glasses waited in midair. Lena laughed, big and bright and careless. "It works out," she said, a shrug in her tone. "The universe provides." She looked at me then, as if to make the joke land. Though Grace wouldn't get it. She doesn't know how to network. She's like a loser for choosing 2 jobs over 1 decent one. Words can bruise the air. The room lost its shape for a second, as if the walls had taken a step back and the ceiling had leaned away. I thought of my blue house, steady as a vow. I thought of the night shifts when my feet burned and my hands shook and I still smiled at a stranger because kindness is free and also the most expensive thing. The word loser sat in my chest like a small, hard stone. I set my fork down carefully, the way you set down something that might shatter. "A loser," I repeated, my voice level like a table you test with your hand. Mom's face went the color of the napkins. Dad stared at his plate as if the answer were there. I didn't plan what came next. It was a door that opened and the truth walked out on its own legs. "I paid your tuition, Lena," I said, not loud, not soft, just true. I sent $600 some months, $1,200 other months, and once I wired $4,000 that took the air out of my lungs. I paid your rent when the landlord wanted $1,250, then $1,350. I made the mortgage late, so your lights could stay on. I refinanced the house and added $300 a month to my payment because your semester arrived like a wave. I did that gladly, but I won't be called a loser for it. Silence rearranged the furniture. Aunt Marie held a serving spoon in midair, gravy sliding off in a slow ribbon. David looked at his plate as if he were studying a rare map. Rebecca touched my forearm under the table, not to hush me, just to say, I'm here. Lena's face flickered. Surprise, anger, something else I couldn't name. Grace, she said finally, don't be dramatic. It's family. You were helping. She smiled the thin smile you keep for strangers you plan never to see again. It isn't like I asked you to sacrifice. I exhaled, felt the word sacrifice circle the room and come back to land beside my plate. Helping cost me $28,000 over 3 years, I said. It cost me sleep. It cost me a ring I planned to keep. It cost the blue house a new porch beam it needs. I'm not asking for repayment. I'm asking for respect. If you want to make a joke, don't aim it at the person who held the net under you. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. He isn't a cruel man. He just likes puzzles. Lena, he said, I had no idea. That's generous. His eyes slid to me, and the word generous sat on the table like a small wrapped gift, too late and still welcome. Mom put her hand over mine in a soft press that meant both I'm sorry and I'm proud. Dad's jaw worked as if he were chewing old news. Lena's chin lifted. I didn't ask her to announce this, she said, sharp now. This is a birthday dinner. Her eyes cut to me. You're making me look ungrateful. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the mirror had slid into view. I am telling the truth, so I can say the next part, I replied. I felt the house in my spine, like a beam. I won't be paying your rent anymore. Not this month, not next. You're welcome to stay with me while you find your feet. The spare room is small, but the window faces morning. But the $1,350 is yours now. Your life is yours now. The room made a soft, collective sound, a breath settling back into lungs. Aunt Marie found the floor again and set the gravy down. David changed the subject for a minute because he is good at rescue work. He asked Rebecca about books, asked Uncle Robert about a game in Chicago, asked me if the bakery still sold the pecan tarts he liked when he was a kid. Conversation limped forward on new legs, but the old wound sat open, clean and bright. Lena did not speak to me for the rest of the meal. She complimented the roast. She laughed at a story about a mishap in Denver. She set her wine glass down carefully, like the stem might splinter under careless fingers. After cake and a song that felt sincere and a little off-key, I slipped into the hallway and leaned against the cool wall. The coat rack held a history of winters. The mirror near the door showed a woman who looked tired and taller. Rebecca stepped beside me with 2 cups of water. For the train of thoughts, she said. I smiled because that was a Marcus kind of line, gentle and a little corny. You did a brave thing, she added, not as praise, just as a label for the box I had opened. Sometimes truth is a key. Sometimes it's a fire alarm. Either way, people wake up. Mom found me next and held me like I was still small enough to fit under her chin. I should have said it for you, she whispered. But I'm glad you said it for yourself. Dad joined us, his hand heavy on my shoulder, a weight that felt like a blessing. You keep this family together, he said, the line he always uses, but this time it sounded like a note he had tuned to a better pitch. When I stepped out into the Boston night, I could feel the country around me the way you feel a map through the paper, cities and rivers pressing up. The air was sharp and honest. I thought of the blue house waiting in Chicago, the porch that needed fixing, the ledger with its thin lines and stubborn totals. I thought of Lena's face, brittle with pride, and of the soft place behind it I had known when she was small. I tucked my scarf tighter and told myself a simple sentence I could carry through airports and overpriced tags and into mornings that would arrive no matter who called me what. You are not a loser. You are a woman who tells the truth and pays the bill that belongs to her, and no more. Back in Chicago, the blue house met me with its usual size, the porch step that dips, the front door that sticks, the warm breath from the vent that smells faintly of dust and coffee. I unpacked my small bag as if it were an argument I didn't want to repeat. I set the ledger on the kitchen table and opened to the page marked with a folded receipt. The numbers were waiting, $600, $1,200, $4,000, $850, $300. Months stacked like bricks, steady and heavy. I ran a finger under each line until I reached the total and felt the quiet truth of it settle into my ribs like a beam. I called Lena that night. The city outside moved in its usual American rhythm. Sirens far away, a bus breathing at the corner, laughter from the neighbor's stoop. "I'm home," I said. And I meant what I said in Boston. There was a pause filled with pride and habit. "Grace," she started, "the landlord wants the $1,350 by Friday." I looked at the cracked tile near the fridge and imagined it replaced a small luxury postponed over and over. "I won't be paying it," I answered. "You can come here for a month or two. The spare room is ready, but the rent is yours now." She inhaled like I had opened a window on a cold morning. "You're punishing me." "No," I said. "I'm retiring from a job I was never hired to do." After I hung up, I texted Mom and Dad. I wrote the truth simply. "I've stopped paying Lena's rent. I can host her in Chicago for a while. I need to fix the porch before winter, and that will cost about $900 if Marcus and I do most of the work." Mom called with the soft apology she keeps for the moments when love looks like money and money looks like exhaustion. Dad cleared his throat and asked what he could send. "Keep it," I told him. "Buy a good coat. Chicago will still be here when you visit." He insisted on $100 anyway, like a stubborn blessing that had learned to count. The next day, I cleaned the spare room. I swept, washed the window, and set a plain lamp on the small dresser. I folded extra sheets and slid an envelope beneath the pillow, 2 $20 bills and a note, for groceries if you get in late. It felt strange to prepare a welcome while holding a boundary, but this is how a house works in America. For walls, one truth. Marcus stopped by with screws and a level, and we stood on the porch studying the sagging board. "We can sister this beam," he said, tapping the wood. "Cost maybe $140 if we find a deal." He said sister and smiled, and I let the pun move through me like a warm drink. "Lena might stay here a while," I added. He nodded. "Then the steps should meet her steady." I made another round of calls, Aunt Marie first, then Uncle Robert. I wasn't angry now. I was documenting my life like a good clerk. "I won't be sending rent anymore," I told them. "If Lena asks for help, send advice first." Aunt Marie sighed, then brightened. "I'll send her the number of a paid internship program in the city," she said. "They placed Rebecca's cousin last year for $18 an hour. Uncle Robert promised to review a budget with her if she wanted one." "I'm good at spreadsheets," he said, a sentence that sounded like a handshake. I thought of the 10-pound note from London still tucked in my desk and smiled at the small ways Europe and America sometimes waved to each other across an ocean of bills. That evening, I sat with the ledger and wrote a new line at the bottom of the page in careful print. No more transfers. Build the house. Build myself. Added a second line, short and practical, fix porch. $140 lumber plus $30 screws plus 2 Saturday afternoons. The numbers steadied me. I thought about the bakery register and the hotel lobby, about the couple from Denver who tipped $20 because I found their lost scarf, about Rebecca's quiet hand on my arm in Boston when the room went still. The world had not changed. I had. The word loser had been loud for one night, but now the house was louder. It said, "Stand straight. Count clean. Pay only what is yours." And when I turned off the kitchen light, the blue walls held the message like a sky that had learned how to keep its weather. The week after Boston moved both fast and slow, like the river when a barge passes under the bridge. Chicago tasted of cold air and bus exhaust, and the blue house felt steadier each day I kept my new line. I worked my mornings at the bakery and my nights at the hotel, but now there was a quiet inside me, the kind that comes when a bill is finally paid and filed. I fixed small things, tightened a hinge, oiled the front door, scrubbed the kitchen tile with a stubborn brush. Marcus came by on Saturday with a borrowed saw and a box of screws. We sistered the porch beam just like he said, the wood snug against wood, a second spine for a tired back. The supplies cost $170 and 2 big coffees, and when I stepped on the mended board, it didn't bow. I thought of Lena and hoped the first thing she felt when she came home was that steady step. On Monday, Lena called. Her breath hitched like she'd been walking fast. "Is the spare room still open?" she asked. Her voice was smaller than the one she used at dinners and parties. "Yes," I said. "It's ready." She arrived the next morning on a bus from New York with 2 suitcases and a face that looked like she had slept with the light on. I hugged her at the curb. The city wind tried to steal the warmth out of us, but we held on. Inside, I showed her the clean sheets, the small lamp, the note under the pillow with $40 for groceries if she needed it late. She touched the envelope, then sat on the edge of the bed like it belonged to a story she hadn't read yet. We started simple. I made eggs and toast. She made a list. We put our lists together at the kitchen table. "You need a paid job," I said, gentle but firm. "Even part-time." She nodded. "I can do mornings at a bookstore or afternoons at a cafe while I look for media work," she said. I wrote down real numbers with a dull pencil. Rent in a modest place here might be $950 if she found a roommate. Bus pass $75, phone $60, food $220 if she planned well. We set a target. Save $600 in 2 months, $1,200 in 4. I told her we would split the house costs while she stayed, $100 a month to learn the rhythm. "I can manage that," she whispered. I believed her because she said it like a promise to herself. That afternoon, Aunt Marie called to check in, and I put her on speaker. She had already emailed Lena a list of paid internship programs in the city, including one that I'd placed Rebecca's cousin for $18 an hour. Uncle Robert sent a spreadsheet template that did the math for you once you typed the numbers. Mom and Dad listened more than they talked, their voices soft with relief. Even David texted a joke about pecan tarts and budgets, and for the first time in days, Lena laughed without flinching. The sound filled the blue house all the way into the hallway where the coats hang like small histories. On Wednesday, we walked to a secondhand store and found Lena a warm coat for $32. We paid in dollars and left with a receipt that looked like a tiny badge. She picked up 2 applications that afternoon and scheduled an interview at a cafe on Friday. When we came home, Marcus was on the porch tightening the last screw in the new beam. "Step up," he said, and Lena did. The board didn't dip. She looked at me, then at him. "Thank you," she said, and the words had weight. Marcus shrugged, smiling. "Houses are teams," he said. "People too." He left us a level and a joke and a 6-pack of seltzer, like care-packed in a paper bag. That night, Lena stood in the doorway of the kitchen while I boxed rolls for the morning. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice low but clear. "I was proud and scared in Boston. I wanted to seem big, so I made you small. I called you a word you do not deserve. You've been carrying more than your share, and I acted like the universe should pick up the tab." I put the lid on the last box and wiped my hands. "We start again," I said. "But this time truth first. Money on paper. No jokes about the weight someone else carries." She nodded. "Truth first," she repeated, as if the phrase were a key that fit our front door. Before bed, I opened the ledger and wrote a new page. Lena, Chicago plan. Below it, I listed the steps in plain print. Paid job by Friday, $100 to the house on the 1st of the month. Budget review every Sunday, 3 applications a day until a yes appears. At the bottom, I wrote one more line for both of us. Respect is due on time. I closed the notebook and felt the blue house settle around us, the porch holding firm, the rooms warmer than their size. Outside, the city hummed its American song. Buses, distant trains, someone laughing on the corner. I thought of Europe the way you think of a postcard stuck to the fridge, a place you might visit when the numbers make sense. For now, we were here, standing on a mended step, paying only what was ours. And for the first time in a long while, that felt like luck earned in dollars and kept with care.